This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Buddy Kunanan. Now, you know, folks, in this show, we take you around the world, we visit amazing places, and meet interesting people. We also talk about topics and issues that impact the global community. Now, tonight is a very special show because we're going to talk to you about an organization called the Asia Society Philippines, dynamic organization. It's so many activities moving the world and society forward through local, to regional, to international engagements. And its mission and vision, and I quote, is to strengthen relationships, deepen understanding, and bridge differences across the Philippines, Asia, and the United States. And joining us to talk about Asia Society Philippines is the executive director of this organization, Suyin Liu Lee. Hi, Suyin.
Thank you for having me.
No, and thank you for coming in the show. Talking about your wonderful, as I said, dynamic organization, and special night tonight because we are talking about Asia and the Asia Society Philippines, and it was a big evening yesterday for Asia because I don't know if you follow the World Cup, but South Korea trounced Germany, defending champs in the World Cup, and it's a massive upset, probably the biggest upset of this World Cup. So a lot of celebrations in South Korea, and a lot of consolation in Germany.
Well, I have to make, I'm sure my colleague in Korea is reveling with everybody else there.
Absolutely. So tonight's all about Asia Society Philippines and the wonderful work you guys are doing, as I mentioned, to move the world forward, move society forward. Let's talk about you first, Suyin, and your very interesting background. Tell us a bit about what led you on this road to where you are now, the helm of this fantastic organization.
Well, I went to school here in the Philippines, but right after graduation, I actually left for the US to begin my career in finance. But early on, I had already figured out that I wanted to do finance mainly to help. So whether my dream job at the time was the Asian Development Bank, because I was in grade school when our debt was so high with the IMF and all that. And I said, no, I'm going to solve that. But I ended up in the capital markets industry in the US, and essentially helping rich people get richer, which is not a bad thing. Actually, it was just an experience for me to see, you know, how a young, because I was younger than most of my counterparts, female Asian could actually succeed
Yes.
in a male-dominated industry. So that was a personal challenge for me. And then in 2008, my husband, who's American Chinese, wanted to see how it felt to be Asian in Asia. So we moved to Singapore,
Okay.
trying to make my way back, I guess, or he was trying to bring me home. And in 2012, we had the opportunity to move back to the Philippines. And at the time, we had a young daughter. She was 1. And I thought about what I wanted to do. And going back to why I even entered finance in the first place was to help. So I said, maybe it's time to think about this, so at least my daughter will know that her mom is actually doing something to help.
Yes.
And so I had the opportunity, because of friends, to learn about Asia Society. And I knew myself enough that I wanted to be in the nonprofit space, but I also didn't have the experience to do field work. So I said, this is a good opportunity for me to aid and support a platform
Yes.
that can help those who do much more than I could ever do.
And wow, so fantastic turnaround from almost 2 decades in the finance game, and then coming back to work for you know, social development basically.
Yes.
And I think that you know, your time in the finance world probably is not totally wasted, since you're probably applying a lot of your skills you learned there to your present work, because you know,
Yes.
NGO work is about raising funds. That's what
Yes.
fuels the engine.
I think the one thing that really helped me was, you see, when people say nonprofit, it just means you don't work for profit. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be profitable.
You should be.
In fact, you should.
Yes,
And
yes.
so that's actually the first things I was telling my chair, Doris Magsaysayho, during my interview, was the first thing I will tell you that I know to do is to read a balance sheet and an income statement. And then it will go from there. The rest is heart, right?
Yes,
the technical
yes.
skill I bring is from my finance sector, but I think nonprofits that are sustainable do need that structure and that
Absolutely.
know-how. So I'm very fortunate that I had that experience and can apply that, and in fact can help other nonprofits look at their organizations from a different lens.
Yes, I think someone like you is perfect at bridging the two worlds, because unfortunately, I mean, reality is, as you mentioned, the nonprofit industry, so to speak. There's a lot of heart, but maybe the technical side is, you know, perhaps there's an imbalance of sorts. But someone like you bridging this two, you know, the wide gulf basically between the two worlds is ideal. Okay, let's talk about Asia Society Philippines, an organization that you are at the helm of, and it is a part of a bigger network
Yes.
called Asia Society, which
Yes.
is located all over the world basically.
Yes. So Asia Society was actually founded in 1956 by John D. Rockefeller III, mainly for the U.S. to understand Asia. I mean, this was post the war, and they wanted to do it through non-political ways. You know, I mean, it's a little too contentious to be political. So let's learn about, you know, Asia, about the East, and that's how it started. In 1999, Mr. Washington C. founded the Asia Society in the Philippines. Some of our board members then continue to be board members to this day. So I'm
Really?
very fortunate.
And what a lineup it is. I mean, going over the list of trustees, this is a powerhouse cast you have here, huh? Behind the foundation.
I'm extremely fortunate to have the wisdom and experience of my board members. I think Mr. Sisip has always been a wonderful philanthropist. But to me, and he attended most, if not all, of the board meetings I had with him for 6 years. He saw the value in bridging gaps, in having face-to-face dialogues, in really understanding the other. I think that is the most important fundamental relationship you must know, especially in the, not just in the world of nonprofits, but just for progress. You have to know what the other needs.
Or for just basic relationships.
Absolutely.
Interpersonal relationship.
And he was an amazing force in that regard, whether bridging people, bridging institutions, bridging countries, in his capacity. And I think that's why Asia Society Philippines was perfect for him at the time to bring here. Involved were other ambassadors to the Philippines, like Ambassador Nick Platt.
Of course.
Yes,
Wow,
yes. And the
yes.
Hubbards.
Yes.
They were also very instrumental in establishing Asia Society Philippines.
Okay, how interesting. And I like what you said about, just increasing your knowledge and awareness of the other. Because you hit the nail on the head when you say that at the root of a lot of conflict and misunderstanding and strife is the fundamental lack of awareness that people have for other issues, for other
Right.
points of view. And what you're doing is amazing, amazing work. And originally, it was the mission was to promote understanding of Asia. Is this, this was a vision of Rockefeller when he
Yes.
founded this in the 50s.
Yes.
And it's spread all over the world.
Yes.
And understand that Asia Society Philippines is, we're proud here in the Philippines because we are the home of Asia Society and the only one in ASEAN.
Yes, we remain the only one in ASEAN. While our networks span all of Asia, the physical center in ASEAN, we're the only ones. In fact, the other additions to our family, or Asia Society family, has been Zurich. We have now a center in
okay.
Zurich. We opened a second center in Australia. So now we have Sydney and Melbourne and Japan.
Wow.
So we just opened one in Japan.
Very good, very good. Okay, you took over as executive director of Asia Society Philippines 6 years ago.
Yes.
How has the organization evolved since its inception in 1989 until 6 years ago, until today, where
Right.
you're sitting right now?
Well, I guess 6 years ago, being new to the organization, and also understanding that the Philippines was the smallest and the youngest population among all the countries represented in Asia Society, we had to think about what was our value proposition. Value proposition in the country and value proposition of Asia Society Philippines in the Asia Society community. So the way we started to look at it was, what matters to us in the Philippines, what matters to us as it relates to ASEAN, Greater Asia, and the rest of the world from a geographic lens. But Asia Society has 4 pillars: arts and culture, policy, which is both business and public policy, leadership development, and education. So we started to form programs in those pillars. A lot of what the Philippines promotes outwardly is arts and culture. So
Yes.
that's our export.
Really?
Our
Okay.
export will be arts and culture. That's how we looked at it. And what would our imports be, right? So our imports would be best practices in different areas, whether it be policy or leadership. We would bring in subject matter experts from Asia and outside
Yes.
of Asia to share their thoughts with us. So we're really a platform for certain issues. So that's kind of how we form our programs. And being a lean team, a lot of that is really, relying on, different forum formats and even like social media.
It's helped a lot, I'm
and,
sure.
And helped a lot.
Definitely.
And has also changed the game because now we have to do things that are appealing, right? Visually, and even those that are would be credible and good speakers to the young people. I mean, I grew up in a generation where we had to meet all
Yes.
the time face to face.
Yes.
And now I feel like connectivity is, becoming your friend on Facebook, which is not necessarily how you get negotiations done in
Yes.
any shape or form.
Yes.
So we're there. So, you become I would always say that, we bring people together, like-minded individuals, and then all of a sudden after a meeting, they end up doing a partnership, whether in business or a nonprofit
Yes.
project.
Yes.
So I guess that's our role.
But it's wonderful that you're reaching out to the new generation, because a lot of people want to help, especially the youth. They want to get involved, and if you can make that link between that generation and the advocacies that you help.
Yes.
And I think that's what you guys do as well. You bridge, you act as a bridge basically
Yes.
between
Yes.
those who want to help and those that are in need of help, advocacies and such.
Absolutely. I think that it helps that my staff is young. They belong to the now generation, and they've given a lot of input as to how things should be packaged and delivered and messaged. But also, there's also the general consensus that most don't actually even care. And so it's interesting because the challenge is always, that is the target.
Yes.
How do you make the person who doesn't care? Because, with the young people being, there are a lot of them and are able-bodied to, help in many
Sure.
ways. I think it's just guiding them.
And so your approach also using arts and culture, I think, is an amazing tool, because when we talk about social change, if you get them in the heart,
Absolutely.
then the rest will follow. The mind, the body will follow. But you got to capture their heart, and what best way to do it through the arts and culture.
Absolutely. And like we have partnered with the Indian community to produce Holi.
That
their
beautiful
spring
video we
festival.
showed
Yes,
just before we came on.
Every year. And when we do Holi, of course it looks like a big party because it is a
It
big
is a
party.
big party. Yes.
But we actually start off with saying, what is the cultural reference? And why do we even do it? Why did we take it on? The reason we took it on is because the Indian community is so much a part of the
Absolutely.
of the Philippines. They're a driving force in our economy,
Absolutely,
in our workforce.
absolutely.
So that's really the underlying
Very nice.
reason. And of course, but it's produced, or it looks like a big party, but there is a reason for that party, and that's what we talk about during the program.
Very good. It's a celebration of springtime, of the coming of
Absolutely,
spring.
yeah.
So you got to pause for a break. When we come back, we'll talk about your other activities, and you've got a long list of fantastic projects which we'll talk about. I hope you have enough time to catch at least the major ones, and then we'll also talk about your engagements in the arts and culture community here and how that's helping you really push the advocacies of Asia Society Philippines. So guys, more of Asia Society Philippines when Global Village returns.
What are the qualities of a leader that you look for? It's not universal. But the motivation for a leader, a servant leader to serve is serving the servant first.
You do the right thing when nobody sees you doing it. In a mountain, near the top of the mountain, you only get one fruit. Why? Because if you get two, you deprive the other climber who will pass the tree. That's what this leadership is all about. You do the right thing when nobody see you doing it.
Dreams. Thus, an emergent leader is a leader that inspires people to dream and make dreams happen.
Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Cunanan. Tonight's topic is Asia Society Philippines, and joining me is the very dynamic executive director of this wonderful organization, Ms. Suyen Liu Lee. Suyen, welcome to our second segment on Global Village. And we talked about Asia 21 Young Leaders, that project of yours, and we showed a nice video.
Yes.
It's an old video from 2011, but this is essentially part of the program. It's an ongoing program of Asia Society Philippines.
So Asia 21, so 21 referring to the 21st century, is Asia Society's way of gathering young leaders, Asian young leaders from all over the world, basically rock stars in their fields, in varied fields from arts and culture all the way to policy and business, and now innovation and technology, to share their experience. And it's really another network for them to learn from each other. There are now almost 1,000 of them all over the world.
Yes.
And it's interesting because Asia Society Philippines actually has the most number of representatives in that group. And also because I guess because of the criteria that we put in selecting them,
yes,
they're really the movers and shakers in our country. We have about 69 to date alumni.
Yeah, okay.
And for the first time, we are actually going to be hosting this global summit in November.
Really? That's a big event.
So it's a big event. It's actually, it's actually not open to the public because it is a summit for the leaders that we select. But we hope that the public can get to know who these personalities are. They span from social entrepreneurs, tech people, but all with a common criteria. All of them are specialists in their fields, but all of them want to give back to their community, the immediate community, and to the world, really. And so I think in the video you showed three of our young leaders, one in education, one who does a foundation supporting indigenous peoples, and the other one at-risk male youth.
Yes.
And one is in Manila, one is in Mindanao, and one is in the Visayas.
Very good. And this big event in November, you're going to bring, a lot of these young leaders from all over the world coming together here in Manila for a summit.
Yes.
Wow. How many are you expecting?
Well, the new class, so every year there's a new class. The new class will be about 35.
Okay.
And alumni, because it's the Philippines, and the Filipinos are quite popular in the network, we're probably going to expect about 100 alumni coming, because they've been waiting for the Filipinos to host this summit.
This is going to be, a really exciting event to bring all these, I'd like to use the word dynamic. I kept using it because
very, very
these
dynamic.
Individuals, talented, empowered, and just inspired, coming together in one place under one roof must be very electric, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting when you meet them. They feel they haven't done enough.
Wow.
And they said when they meet each other, that's actually how they feel. And it's very interesting because it shows you that even in such areas of leadership, humility is the ongoing value that they all possess. And that's what I noticed with these young leaders. And I have met well, the ones in Manila, the ones in the Philippines, but also those from abroad.
Yes.
And I think that's what distinguishes an Asia 21 young leader from many other leadership award-giving bodies. But it's interesting because all of them have all these multiple awards from different award-giving bodies, but we actually have different facets
Yes.
of leadership.
Yes. No, a wonderful, wonderful project. Do you keep them, I mean, your alumni, do you
Yes.
keep them and use them for other,
Oh,
let's say, speaking
absolutely.
engagements, utilize their talents and in other fora?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think for the Philippines,
Yeah.
and I think as Filipinos, our gem is always our people.
That's true.
And I think we are a center that doesn't have a museum because Asia Society has museums in Houston, New York, and Hong Kong.
Wow.
We don't boast of a museum,
Right.
but our people are amazing. Basically, our network, you can ask us, for subject matter experts, we can deliver. And I think these young leaders, what is nice is, we've sent them to engage with public school students, to talk about their experiences, to lead discussions on, whether it's media transparency, to peace and security in Mindanao. I mean, these are, our go-to for our content.
It's wonderful that you guys are really spearheading your advocacy by creating platforms for engagement, for collaboration, for communication.
Yes.
And I was very impressed with your list of projects and activities, and all really, most of them really focusing on that, or if not most, if not all. No?
Yes.
And aside from the Asia 21 Young Leaders Summit, you also have the Ambassador Series.
Yes.
And the Asia Society Conversations and Understanding Mindanao, which are all about dialogue, focusing on different audiences.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Ambassador Series. That's pretty
So we launched
interesting.
that this year.
Yeah.
We're fortunate to be in this space because we do get to interact with the diplomatic community. And one thing that was interesting to me, to us, to the group was, well, who else knows what they're here for?
Good point.
Because
Yes.
because they do have different missions
Absolutely.
and varied missions,
Yes.
which actually entail public support. So, and there's always a different side and amazing stories from these diplomats. So we started this year. Our first was actually to invite our female ambassadors. So we talked about gender gap. So we talked about gender gap in different,
How interesting.
in their different
Yes,
countries, and they were
yes.
all female. So that was very interesting. Second, the second one was the U.S. ambassador, Ambassador Kim.
Yes.
It was also very interesting because I believe that was the night before the historic North and South Korea dialogue. We learned a lot about our long-lasting U.S.-Philippine relations, and after 70 years, what does it look like?
Yes.
Our next one will be our Indian ambassador. Talk more about our relationship with them and the East Asia Act.
Yes.
So,
It's so varied,
Yeah.
the topics that you discuss. Also in your Asia Society conversations,
that
I was going over the
definitely.
list of topics,
that's
and
very
it's
varied,
like, it's totally, there's something about the internet, there's something about, I don't know, human rights. I mean, it's really spread out over a broad range of issues. My question for you
Right.
is, how do you choose these topics? How do you vet, let's say, if you have a list of 10, how do you really center and narrow down and say, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the
Right.
internet.
So, Asia Society Conversations is really targeted towards the young. It's a very casual conversation over beer and pizza, literally over beer and
I like
pizza.
that.
But the topics are important issues of the day. So we have covered Islam, we have covered female CEOs who break through the glass ceiling in male-dominated industries, and issues that are talked about on the internet and social media. And what our aim is to bring credible subject matter experts to really talk about the topic, because you tend to find people commenting on issues, and you want to make sure that that's backed up.
Yes,
by,
and that's a problem with the young
by
generation,
information.
the social media generation. Everyone has a soapbox to stand on,
Yeah.
and everyone's automatically an internet expert, which is dangerous. It's a dangerous thing,
Yeah.
but that's where your guidance from your foundation really comes in, because as you mentioned, you bring in people with solid background and credentials and experience, authorities really on this subject matter. My question to you is, how do you bring together these people, how do you get an audience together? How do you choose your audience? How do you invite them over? How do you get them under one roof?
Well, for the speakers,
Yeah.
for example, we really research on the best persons
Sure,
to actually talk about the subject matter. Sometimes when partners come to us, partner organizations, what they look to us is really the curation. So we really spend a lot of time figuring out what type of panel will go well together for people.
No, but the audience, how do you get?
But the audience, it's a lot of our events are actually open to the public.
Oh, okay.
So we have target audiences like schools and young professional organizations. We do initiatives
Okay.
to invite them, but at the same time, we do social media invitations. On Facebook. We have a Facebook page. People follow us, so they know about our programs.
The Asia Society conversations, as you mentioned, really target the young people, the millennials.
Yeah.
What is the turnout like? Is it well received? Do a lot of people attend?
So about 75.
Okay.
75 people in the room.
Yes.
But when we post on social media, we actually get about 400 per event.
Okay. All right.
We hope that cascades not just outside, within Metro Manila. We do want it shared nationwide.
Interesting word, cascades. How do you track success? Let's say you have a project like this. How do you assess the kind of impact it's made on your target audience? Is there a mechanism in place that you were able to track the success rate of this?
Well, unfortunately, you wish we could do that, right? That's the finance professional me that gets really frustrated. But I think it's, first we have membership.
Okay.
So you can come in as a public, you come in because it's a public event. You like our event so much, you become a member. But of course, the membership is really, the value of the membership is the network. So if you need contacts in certain areas, that's what our membership really truly becomes valuable. And also, that means contact also with our other 13 centers around the world and the individuals in those centers. And you get invited to those events that happen in the other centers. That's what our membership actually provides. So success is conversion.
Yes.
From participation to membership. Success is also anecdotal,
Sure.
right? That, we heard you from Asia Society, you're from Asia Society, this is what you do. And for me, in the last 6 years, my measure of success is one, being invited by people like you.
Thank you very much.
And also organizations that want to partner with us to, for example, create a conversation that's larger.
Definitely.
So for example, we've done one on urban planning, where we partnered with an international urban planning firm. We just hosted Arts and Museum Summit, where we actually brought in about 150 international museum professionals.
Yes.
So I think it's the partnering
Yes.
that is also a measure.
Totally agree with you when you talk about stakeholder enlistment
Yes.
and conversion, membership conversion, because when you get people to join your group, these really are force multipliers. Especially if they take time out to join, then their heart is there. They're going to give 110%, 120%, and it's just going to go viral. No? Suyan, we have to pause for a break, but when we come back, we'll talk about the museum project, because we actually have a video we're going to show about the museum project. So guys, more of Asia Society Philippines when Global Village returns.
biggest challenges about cultivating arts community is if they're not all in the same place, if they have different languages, if they have different routines, and how do they come and visit you. So you have to think about the sort of experience of the museum goer as much as you can think about what's on your wall. So it is a bigger question about how to talk to your audience in a way that is challenging but also accessible, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges that we deal with at Foray.
After its founding, the world is more interconnected than ever before. Understanding between Asia and the West continues. Exchanges of arts, education, policy, and business have the potential to lead the world towards a promising future. From my point of view, we are living in extraordinary times. Never before have we been so interconnected. The pace of change is so rapid. Every day, we are being guided and influenced by smarter technology that is developing our communications and changing the way we live.
Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Cunanan. Tonight's topic is Asia Society Philippines, and joining me still is the Executive Director of this wonderful organization, Asia Society Philippines, Suyan Liu Lee. Suyan, nice video and a shameless plug for our alma mater, Ateneo de Manila, and that is that's Arete, which is the newest the newest art space, basically.
Arts and innovation.
Yes.
Yes.
Which wasn't there when we went to school.
Absolutely not.
It was a cornfield, but now voila.
Yes.
Right?
Beautiful building. We expect lots of amazing things to happen.
Like your event.
Yes, we were the first event, I'm proud to say, at the Arete, and we are very fortunate. So the Arts and Museum Summit is actually a project from our arts department that's located in New York. They do it, it's a biannual summit where they get about over 100 international art experts to talk about a certain topic. And this year, well, actually it was both mutually decided that it's about time we do it in the Philippines to promote our arts sector, and at the same time to bring in foreign, international subject matter experts to interact with our museum professionals. So it was really for museum professionals. Of course, we had artists, but it was interesting because many of them actually did not really know the depth of Philippine art and our art scene today. And so the discussion was so insightful. You know, we have God-given talent in the arts.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the discussion was, how do you promote it? How do you showcase it? How do you fundraise for it? I mean, it's not, apparently, so I'm not from that sector, it's very expensive to go abroad and join these summits, which is why we partnered with the Museum Foundation and Ateneo so generously also, and Metrobank Foundation and several other art supporters like Shell to help bring these experts here so that our museum professionals, members of the National Museum from outside Metro Manila, can actually go to a summit and meet these professionals without having to leave the country.
And so many developments happening in the art industry, in art curation, in preservation, and so many advances, technology and techniques. And so fora like this, super helpful really to, as you mentioned, the stakeholders we have here. And you know, not everyone can, it's not easy for people to just pick up and leave and go to another country, but to bring the experts here. What an invaluable experience.
Well, that's what we aim to do, you know, is to bring the resources here and also bring, you know, people in that in those varied sectors to come to Metro Manila
Yes.
or to take them out. I mean, it should be a nationwide discourse, you know.
You know, I think I love about your society, your foundation, Asia Society, is that your emphasis really on using arts as a platform. I mean, you've got so many, you know, different activities. You've got conversations, dialogues, different, you know, platforms for people to get to know each other. But a lot of it is really centered on the arts.
Well,
I mean,
wouldn't-
that is a
yeah.
major driving force. Example,
Right.
you have a series of talks coming up called Understanding Mindanao.
Yeah.
And I understand that part of your approach here is to go via the arts initially, or culture, before diving into the
Yes.
nitty-gritty, you know, topic of Mindanao.
Yeah, I think the way Asia Society does it, which is something from John D. Rockefeller III. I mean, the vision is human interaction. And what better way to ground you, have or establish common ground, but through arts and culture. It's basic human condition.
Yes.
And so you start with something, whether it's beautiful, ugly, or painful, and then that's where, you know, the formal discussions and formal topics or serious topics come in. But
Very
I
good.
think the basic thing is to have a people-to-people relationship.
Yes.
And that really starts from really what brings people together is arts and culture, which is why, you know, we talk about food, we talk about film. I mean, we have a film fest that features Asian films, independent films, primarily to support the independent filmmakers, but to also shed light on social issues, which a lot of independent films focus on.
Yes, yes.
And even with that, we use it to have a director's dialogue. So Asian directors can talk about, you know, their common experiences, the support they get, you know, or lack of support.
There's
in
that learning
cases.
process from shared experiences.
Everything is about learning, and that's how
Very
we
good.
define education.
Very good.
I think aptly put is learning experiences, and to create change, or to just, you know, maybe move the needle a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, arts and culture are nice because it makes you open-minded,
Yes.
right? About possibility, about differences. But if you approach a tough topic, for instance, like example, going back to Mindanao, if you have a closed mindset from the get-go, from the beginning, then, you know, forward progress will be very difficult. But if you have, you know, if you approach it with at least with a little sense of optimism, open-mindedness, it makes it more effective for everyone.
Well, as a non-partisan organization, we're a non-government organization, we have to be open-minded and look at something from all sides. We are a platform. We want, it's a safe space. You know, people use the word safe space, but it's really meant for everyone
You're a
to
facilitator.
share.
You need
Yeah, we're a
yeah.
facilitator for dialogue with the ultimate end for progress,
Yes.
and for peace and for understanding, which is what we aim for as an organization, is mutual understanding. And sometimes you must have to disrupt something, right?
Another good word.
Disrupt something, or
yes.
disrupt the way we talk
Definitely.
about things for us to get closer to each other.
Definitely.
And so, you know, that's why our film festival promotes independent film, because these films are films about, you know, a different angle to a conversation, and also because independent filmmakers also have a lot of creative leeway it's an form of expression.
Yes.
In fact, when we talk about food, and we have a local publication called Culinaria,
which I'm going to hold up now, which is a wonderful book of traditional
Yes.
Filipino recipes.
yes,
I love it.
So we actually feature 6 of our country's best chefs. I'm proud to say I think every Philippine ambassador has this in their suitcase when they get assigned somewhere else. But and that's why it doesn't say cookbook. It's a guidebook. So it actually gives you an understanding of influences of the Philippine cuisine, how it is meant to be prepared, that it is meant to be shared. It is meant to, it's a sharing type of meal. And when we do our dinners, or when Asian society actually in general around the world talk about food, there's always an academic learning to the dinner. And it's not just your ordinary culinary experience.
Yes, and I mean, when you talk about opening minds and awareness and all that, what better way to do than through cuisine, Who doesn't like to eat good food,
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a few minutes to close. Let's talk about your understanding Mindanao quickly.
Yes.
What makes this different from other fora, from other, talks like this? There's a lot of talks about Mindanao and, getting to know the problems of the island and all that.
Right.
What makes your approach different?
Well, as you said, there are many, because we want to understand the South better. But what we really want to do is just to participate in the dialogue, to actually to make the discussion accessible. We think about our audience and we say, okay, will a high school person understand what's going on? I think that's more our target, is that it's not, it doesn't focus so much on policy, but, understanding what is happening in the area, understanding more about our brothers and sisters in the South. And that's why we're going to start with, culture and what it's like there. And then progress to what business opportunities there are there. And finally end with a discussion on how, as people who are not in the area, can contribute to sustainable peace in the area, because we have a part to play. I mean,
Absolutely.
we are Filipinos. We're all Filipinos.
We're all stakeholders in what happens down there.
Absolutely.
And nice what you're doing is you're addressing the problem on the base. Really, I hit the nail on the head again. The lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, lack of awareness of the issues at the very basic level.
Yes.
So that, and I think this is what your approach. You're approaching it first there, and then you move on to, as you said, business and other issues that affect the island. No?
Mm-hmm.
So Yan, a lot of things to still talk about. Unfortunately, we come to the end of the show. Would you like to say something to the audience before we go?
Well, we invite you to all our events, and we have a Facebook page, Asia Society Philippines, a web page, asiasociety.org/Philippines. Please come. We have our monthly conversations, so you have the opportunity to see us monthly, and follow us on social media. Thank you again for the opportunity.
No, thank you. And Understand Mindanao, the first series starts August 9.
Yes.
So in about less than 2 months' time, your first, good luck.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure it's going to be a
Thank you.
success, and bravo, an excellent job. And Suyan, thanks for coming to the show. It was
Thank
a
you for
pleasure to
having
have
me.
you here. And now, I'm sure that the audience knows so much more about Asia Society Philippines
so
and the
much.
wonderful work you guys are doing.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you, bravo.
opportunity.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
So guys, I hope you enjoyed our show tonight in Global Village. Join us again next week here on the show, and let's take you around the world. Till then, you all have a good evening.